Welcome, everyone. I am Beth Yerksa, and I'm Executive Director of Triangle Artworks. And for those of y'all that don't know us, we are a nonprofit in and we operate in the Triangle region of North Carolina. Our mission is to serve the arts sector as a business sector in the Triangle. And what that means is that we work to strengthen those working in the arts sector as businesses, and that those often include individual artists, arts nonprofits, arts-based businesses like galleries and venues and designers and just a lot of different arts businesses. What we do is we do a lot of things for them. So far, we're a fairly new organization. We create a center point for this sector as a business sector, centered around our website and our social media. We bring the community together around a center, and we also advocate for this sector as a business community, help to give them more power and presence as a business community in this region. And what we do day to day, though, is we provide resources. If you look at we have a brand new website, just launched about a week ago. We're very excited about it. If you look at it, it can tell you a lot about what we do. And a lot of we have directories, we have resources, we have news, all of which, if you work in the art sector, will help you thrive as a business. We also do professional development of trainings through our program called ArtSwell, which is also on the website. So we do a lot of, well, we used to do in-person training, now we do webinars like this to help you get the tools and the resources and training you need to thrive. And then we do other events. We used to do a lot of networking events, and we do some other sort of regional networking programming, and we're doing some of those right now, actually. So today, our program is we're going to be talking about the PPP loan forgiveness policy. And a lot of y'all have probably already gotten PPP loans, or you're thinking about applying under the new extended deadline. And so you're interested in learning more about this new policy that's come out. We're excited to have two speakers that are very familiar to Triangle Artworks. We work with them all the time. First is Patrick Rodriguez, who is Senior Area Manager for the SBA. And Patrick did our PPP program about a month ago or so now. Who knows, time is fluid right now. And we work with Patrick a lot, and we're glad to have him help us out today. And also Lisa Long Jackson, who is VP and Lender Relationship Manager at Fifth Third Bank. And we work with Lisa a lot as we're both members of the Durham Small Business Advisory Council, and we're glad to have Lisa helping us out today. Also, a last minute addition is Walter Lara-Figueroa from the SBA in the Charlotte office. He is a lender relationship manager specialist there, and he's also sort of becoming the subject matter expert at SBA on the issue of this loan forgiveness. So we're glad to have him helping us out today to get your questions answered. A couple quick logistics before I turn this over to Patrick to start. Again, we have 100 registered. We'll hopefully get close to that shortly. But this is a standard webinar format, so you are all muted and you're all off screen. So you will not be able to ask questions live. Many of you submitted questions ahead of time, and those are the questions we're going to start with. Hopefully some of those were provided to Patrick and to Lisa beforehand, and hopefully some of them will be answered in their remarks. But it will also be the first questions I will ask at the end of their remarks. And if you have additional questions, please put them in the Q&A. I see people are already doing that, and then we'll go to those questions next. And that's all I've got. Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can start sharing your screen.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to share my PowerPoint here to see how that works. I did drop off earlier, so I will just warn everybody if that happens. I know Walter can pick up where I leave off, so if that does happen, feel free to just take the reins, Walter, and we'll make it work. Thanks again this afternoon for being here and listening in on the Paycheck Protection Program and how the next step of the process will be rolled out. Obviously, the first one was how do you calculate the PPP loan? amount. That was a big topic of discussion a few months ago when it first rolled out. Everyone seemed to through webinars and through resources like yourself, figure out that there is a pretty logical way to calculate that amount. Step two, which was these last 2 months and the continuing 24 weeks, is how do I use these funds appropriately to get full forgiveness? And I think most of the people, have used an 8-week covered period, and there will be others that use a 24-week period. But for the most part, we want to get ahead of the curve and let people know that they can apply as soon as they use their PPP funds, and that they do not have to wait till the end of the 24 weeks or the 8 weeks to apply. So let's kind of just roll here. Want to just mention that SBA is still up and running. We're in the middle of one of the largest recovery programs ever put out by the United States government, and we are working with a couple of major resources and programs, I should say, such as the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the PPP, the loan forgiveness. And we have offices throughout the state that can help people get the full spectrum of SBA resources and get plugged into those resources. We have myself in Raleigh, we have Dawn in Wilmington, we have a Charlotte office that covers the middle of the state, and then we have an Asheville office. For those of you that are listening in outside the triangle, there are also more than probably 36 or so resource partner offices located throughout the state. And I'll show you where to find those in a little bit. But just know that if you go to the SBA.gov website and type in your zip code, you will get a listing of all the resource partners and SBA offices close to you. So I just want to put that out there early so you guys know that we are still open and taking calls, doing webinars, doing Zoom meetings, etc., to talk one-on-one with small business owners. As you know, SBA, primarily we're in the counseling, contracting, and capital business, but during times of disaster, we really flip the switch and go into disaster mode. And I would say for the last 4 months, we've been concentrating on getting information out to small businesses on those loan programs that I was mentioning earlier. The PPP, which we're going to talk about, small business debt relief, in case you have a small business loan right now through the SBA. SBA will be paying the principal and interest for those loans through September 27th. And also, you may have heard there's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan in Advance program for those that maybe don't qualify for the PPP or the debt relief. The EIDL loan in advance is still available to small businesses, nonprofits, agricultural concerns, and it's still up and running. And I will make a brief, I'll kind of correct myself, but the Economic Injury Disaster Loan is available. Unfortunately, the Economic Injury Disaster Advance ran out of funding as of this week. So we are trying to make people aware that the EIDL Advance is no longer available, but the EIDL loan is available. So just to keep those two things separate. So let's get into the PPP, which I think most of the folks on the webinar are interested in. A brief overview, right? We know that we've calculated the loan amount, we've received the loan through our lender, and now we have to spend at least 60% on payroll. And that's through the new law, the new guidance that Congress passed recently. You can spend 100 on payroll, but you got to spend at least 60 to get the loan forgiveness. At most, 40% can be spent on non-payroll, such as rent, utilities, mortgage interest. Utilities, electricity, gas, water, transportation, telephone, internet, all those are considered utilities. A lot of people ask about cars and gas, transportation specific. We really do not have hard line item eligibility broken down in the transportation arena. So transportation can be gas. We know that that's kind of the main thing that they're talking about. So we'll kind of leave that to the lenders and the small businesses to work out. And Walter, if you have any other kind of tips or tricks on those utilities, feel free to come in and talk a little bit about what you've run into.
On the gas, it's really like Patrick said, it's on the lender, because it is the lender's loan, so they're going to do their due diligence. But what I've seen is also some lenders, like if your transportation can be gas, it can be maintenance, so it's really up to the lender's interpretation. And additionally, it can also be business leases fall into that as well, and the costs of rents do fall in it, but not the actual mortgage payment, only the mortgage interest. So just keep that in mind, okay? But ideally, when you're preparing for this this forgiveness, you don't wait until the 24 weeks, because if you're waiting until the 24 weeks, if you spent it already, it's going to be the holidays, and it's going to be a mad rush if you waited. If you spent it already, start talking to your lender. And additionally, if I would also advise you to talk to your lender. Hey, you might be at your 10th week, right? 2 weeks before you're going to spend all that money, have a conversation with your lender. What exactly is the documents that you're requiring from me? The more complete the package you can give that lender, the easier it's going to be for that lender. So just keep that in mind as well. Just don't send in the application blindly. Just call them up 2 weeks before and say, what is the list that I need? Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right. So yes, please chime in when we're going through this if you have some information that needs correcting or sharing. So as we know, PPP is a loan. The borrowers agreed to repay the lender 100% of the loan amount within 2 years or 5 years if you originated that loan after June 5th. So that's the kind of the baseline that everyone's kind of taking that loan out understanding. So the forgiveness is not automatic. So the borrower must apply for the forgiveness with the lender, and then you're going to be using most likely a borrower approved application form or a borrower approved portal online. And you may or may not have to use the actual SBA application for forgiveness, but it'll be with the same information, same line items as the SBA form, and the borrower will provide that to the lender, will provide that to the borrower directly. And that should be happening relatively soon. We are waiting for additional guidance from Treasury on some of the more intricate pieces of the forgiveness, but stay tuned. That should be coming in the days and week ahead. When and if the lender approves the forgiveness application, the lender will request the SBA pay down the loan by the forgiveness amount in line 8 on the easy form or line 11 on the standard form. So for most businesses, that's going to be the entirety of the PPP loan. In some cases where they did not use it on specific, for instance, on the mortgage interest, utilities, or rent, or payroll, then that money has to be repaid. And that will be, like I said earlier, a 2-year loan or a 5-year loan with 1% interest. So that's up to the borrower and the lender to make those payments on time. The borrower can apply for forgiveness before the end of the covered period, either the 8 or 24 weeks. If the borrower has used all the loan proceeds for which the borrower is requesting forgiveness. So if you've used up all your PPP money, you're a sole proprietor, you paid yourself in entirety through just 100% of payroll, then you can start, like Walter said, getting your paperwork together to then submit to the lender for forgiveness. And we'll be putting that, the lenders will be reaching out to you. But also, talk to your lender, be proactive about it, and try to get ahead of the curve. Just to have this PowerPoint will be sent out to all the participants today in a PDF form. And so you'll have the links here, but there's going to be 2 application forms. One is the easy, which we'll cover in the next few minutes. And I think the majority of small businesses will be eligible to go the easy route. And then for those that are not, I'm going to leave it to the small business resource centers, the small business technology development centers, the SCORE and the women's business centers to help work with you one-on-one to do the long form if needed. The easy form is literally probably maybe a 10 to 15 minute sit down calculation where you can go through it and easily come up with your loan forgiveness number. So first of all, let's talk about who can use the easy form. So there's at the instructions, which are online, have 3 different sections regarding easy loan use. So if you can check at least one of the 3 boxes above, then you can use the easy form. And I'll go through the first one really quick. So if you are a self-employed individual, independent contractor, or sole proprietor who has no employees at the time of you took out the PPP application and you did not include any employee salaries in the computation of your average monthly payroll, you can use this easy form. So check. And maybe for a lot of artists that might be the case. So you would use the easy form, which we'll go over in detail in just a minute. Okay, so next, if you don't fall into that bucket, let's say you fall into this bucket. I, as a borrower, did not reduce my annual salary or hourly wage of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period or the alternative covered period compared to the period between January 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2020. So that basically means that before this pandemic, you did not reduce the wages during the covered period. And it's not the overall amount, it's the rate of pay. So if they're per hour, you paid them $10 per hour, and now that you're paying them $7.50 per hour, you would fall in that okay category. But if you paid them less than $7.50, then you would fall out of that bucket. And then Walter, if you want to chime in, but the second part of that checkbox, you also have to meet this criteria as well. The borrower did not reduce the number of employees or the average paid hours of employees between January 1st, 2020 and the end of the covered period. So not only did you pay your employees not less than 75% of what they originally made, but you did not reduce the number of employees as well. And there are prorated forgiveness. So let's say you did reduce your number of employees. You're still eligible for forgiveness, but it will be at a ratio of what your forgiveness would be. So if let's say you had 10 employees, unfortunately you didn't bring one back for certain reasons, and there's exemptions as well. But let's say you just forgot, and then you only brought back 9. So that would be reduced by 10%, and then your forgiveness would be reduced by 10%. Walter, do you have any kind of clarifying?
Yeah, and additionally, let's say, well, I'm not sure if we have any like restaurant people here or some of the people that may be making minimum wage. They may be making more money with the unemployment situation of that $600 bonus. As long as you get something in email, like you offered them the job, that's all I would do, and just put it in the file so you don't get penalized for that. So just, I offer the job and they email you back, I'm not coming back, whatever, that's all you need to do. And then you won't be penalized. That reduction won't take place there.
Good point. Thank you, sir. Yeah, and so those are the two criteria for that bucket. You both have to meet both of those. And then the last bucket is kind of opens it up to some of the exemptions out there. So the borrower did not reduce annual salary or hourly wages of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period or alternative payroll covered period compared to the previous to January 1st to March 31st. And the borrower was unable to operate. So you were unable to operate during the covered period at the same level of business activity as before February 15th, 2020. So that opens up a lot of exemptions for people to use the EZ form under those conditions, which a lot of states and counties and cities directed businesses to shut down. And that's according to Secretary of Health and Human Services, Director of CDC, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But a lot of those federal requirements were the basis for the cities, the counties, and the states to use to shut down businesses. So if your city, county, or state told you to, they were using those types of directives to shut down, and then you would qualify to use the EZ form. Just to go over it one more time. So mandated closure of non-essential businesses, limited business operations, outdoor seating, for instance, like restaurants. Let's say you had to increase your sanitation and cleaning processes, such as like hair care salons that are now open. Or you had to social distance in the business that resulted in fewer customers, or, worst case, you had to refuse customers because of non-compliance with health and safety orders. So any of those and others would qualify for you to use the EZ form. And so last but not least, just to review that, so if you can check one of those three boxes, you can use the EZ form and not the long form. All right, so what is in the EZ form, right? Why do we want to use it versus the long form? Well, it is literally 2 pages. One page is your certifications, you're checking, saying, yes, I am a small business. Yes, I did use it for, for my business. And the page 2 is just filling in the loan amounts and numbers that you used, pay payroll, interest, utilities, and then you add it up. So there has been a little bit of confusion on this page, specifically this line item, employees at time of loan application, employees at time of loan forgiveness application. So employees at time of loan application and employees at time of forgiveness application has no bearing on your forgiveness. It is not related to the FTE forgiveness calculation at all. So it's there for probably statistical purposes or informational purposes for the SBA and Treasury. But if you could just list that in a number, 5, 10, 1, 0, whatever it is, just put that number in there. It has no bearing on your forgiveness. A lot of people are getting caught up on that question. Second question that's kind of confusing folks, and this is pretty much the entire form right here. So the first part, you're putting in your business name, address, your loan number, your loan amount, your EIDL advance amount, your EIDL application number, your payroll schedule, what your covered period was, or your alternative covered period, and if you receive more than $2 million, you're going to check that box. And then the bottom part of the form is the computation, the calculation for it. Line 1, payroll cost. Line 2, business mortgage interest payments. Line 3, business rent or lease. Line 4, business utility payments. And you're going to add all those up for that covered period and list those amounts right there. And then on line 5, you're going to add those top 4 lines together. And on line 6, you're going to put your PPP amount. And then on line 7, you're going to get a really odd kind of line item asking you for a really weird number, but it has some logic behind it. They're going to ask what your payroll costs were. So your payroll costs at 60%. So you're going to divide line 1 by 0.6. And then let's say you had $100,000 in payroll, you're going to divide it by 0.6, and you're going to get this number, $166,667. And you're like, why does that figure into this equation of my forgiveness? Well, it's used to determine if 60% has been spent on payroll. So follow me just for a second. So your forgiveness amount, which is the last line of there, will be enter the smallest lines of 5, 6, and 7. So you're gonna, whatever you spent on your payroll, mortgage, interest, rent, or utilities, that sum is gonna be there. Your PPP loan amount's gonna be there. Most of the time, those numbers are gonna be exactly the same amount. And they're gonna be smaller than the 167,000 amount. So you're gonna list that amount there, and that'll be the forgiveness amount for your PPP loan. And that is literally the entirety of the form for the EZ section. So Walter, you have any thoughts on that regarding how to fill it out? And most likely you're going to be filling this out online with your lender or through some type of lender application that they're going to give you that may resemble this.
Just don't get hung up on the fact that there's no section there for transportation. You can just add it in one of those. What I've seen some lenders doing is just adding it under business utility payments, because there's no really place to add it, right? Because we didn't put a transportation line item there, but you can include that as well. And then if your lender questions that, you can just say, hey, this is it. But if you see that, that's really what that's really your cheat sheet of what you're gonna use. So get your mortgage interest statement, get your lease for proving the rent, your utility payments. So if you're handing this, you already have what the banker is going to ask you for. So get those documents, so you have them already organized, and just send them to the banker, because the banker is going to want proof, not just, well, $200 for utilities or whatever it is. So just bear that in mind. And then for your payroll costs, it would be like your 941s. Even if your 941s aren't done, because this question has come up a lot. Well, this is if you have other employees, right? The 941s, that's basically your taxes, your, what is it called? The employment taxes that you're handing. However, you don't have to wait till the quarter is over. You can send a draft copy up to them, and then they say, this is what I'm going to submit. So you don't have to wait until the quarter that you submitted, if that makes sense. Once you spend the money, get it into the lender.
Point. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Right. So just kind of wrapping the easy form up. So if you can fall into one of those 3 buckets, most likely a majority of small businesses will fall into those 3 buckets, and you'll be able to use the 2-page forgiveness form, and you'll be sending that to your lender, or using a lender supplied forgiveness form directly through their website or through hard copy. So moving on to the long form, I'm not going to go into a lot of details regarding this form. I'm just going to show you generally what it has on it, and I'm going to recommend that if you have any questions, to please reach out to their resource partners in your area. We have the Small Business Technology Development Center available. We have the Women's Business Centers across the state, and we have SCORE, which have chapters all over the state and the country to help people walk through this forgiveness application. So the long form is a little bit, 5 pages long, has the same question that kind of confounded people on the EZ form. Employees at time of loan application, just list that number. Employees at time of forgiveness application, list that number. Does not have any bearing on your loan forgiveness calculation. And then also it has that 60% payroll cost requirement, which is line 1 divided by 0.6. So that will be in there as well. Moving on, the form, the 5 pages, has both a worksheet and a Schedule A. So it has a worksheet A and a Schedule A. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fill it out from the bottom up. So Schedule A worksheet is listed below the Schedule A, but you need the Schedule A worksheet in order to fill out the Schedule A. So what folks will be doing is they will be going in here and listing their employee's name, employee identifier, their cash contribution, the average FTE, and their salary or hourly wage reduction in those boxes. And then if you need more rows, you're just going to attach additional pages like this to your application. So you're going to get those numbers and those sums in box 1, 2, 3, and the totals in box 4 and 5. And you're going to then go up in the application and put those numbers in the Schedule A. And that's why I'm recommending that, you know, maybe it's not intuitive, but if you read through the instructions, it is fairly straightforward. But we definitely recommend people using our resource partners to walk them through. And I'm sure there'll be some additional training on this as we go along, but that's the gist of the whole form and how to fill it out. I'm not going to go into the details right now. Maybe in the Q&A, we'll touch on some of the questions. Walter, do you have any points to add there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And then I'm going to wrap up because I know Lisa wants to say a few words, and I don't want to take all the time. I just want to mention there's some compensation limits there. We are listing them in the PowerPoint. The compensation limits for employees for 24 weeks, the maximum is $46,154 per individual. Or if you're using the 8-week covered period, the maximum contribution for employees is $15,385. And then if you go and look at the owner compensation replacement, it's a little bit different. It's not the same as the employee. If you use the 2.5 months calculator, it is the $20,833 amount, or the $15,385 amount, depending on how you use the calculator. And then I'll leave it to you guys to kind of look at what's included, what you can and cannot include as far as health benefits, and what you can and cannot include as far as retirement benefits. With an S Corp versus a C Corp, they're a little bit different. And that's about it for me. I'll turn it over and I'll stop sharing. I think those are the resource providers. All this information is on the SBA website and on the Treasury website, and I'll stop there.
Patrick, can you go back? Well, I do want to say that you went back to your research partner slides, and I think I want to make sure that people understand, sorry. And if you look, we'll be sending you our business resource page too, and because I really think a lot of people don't know about organizations like SBTDC and the Women's Business Center and the small business centers and the community colleges who have free small business counselors that can help, that are very knowledgeable in these programs, can help walk you through this. So this is a good resource, and we'll send this slideshow to you, but we'll also send you our directory. So if you still have questions, you want someone to walk through it with you, they're such a great resource.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yep, thank you. And I'm going to vote. I'm a banker. Obviously, I've been with Fifth Third Bank probably for almost 2 years now, but I've been in banking for more than 30 years. I don't like to admit that anymore, but that is true. And I have been in the business banking space probably for the last 7 or 8 years. This is probably the most comprehensive program I've ever seen in my history of banking in terms that the government has put out to help business owners. So I want to say, first off, thank you. This has been just absolutely great to feel like you could actually help your clients in this manner, as PPP has done. So a couple of points to make. One, the most important thing, and I think Patrick and Walter both said this, is go back to your specific lender where you obtain the funds from, because each bank is going to probably have a little bit different requirements. Each bank will probably open up their forgiveness portal at different times. Fifth Third, we have not opened up our online portal yet, but we do expect it probably within the next couple of weeks. As Patrick alluded to, we are waiting for final guidance on that, final guidance regarding forgiveness before we open up the portal. Keep in mind that I think that's a great point that was made, that you can actually apply for forgiveness at any point when you have finished it, assuming that your lender has opened up their portal for forgiveness. Just to expect, I just want to make a point on although we're not here to talk about the extended guidelines for the PPP loan, the new deadline is August 8th. Most banks will stop accepting applications probably a week in advance of August 8th. So if you have not applied, please feel free to go ahead and apply. Check with your bank as far as any new requirements, because the requirements between the initial application for PPP loans and the requirements today have changed a little bit. So be sure that you're talking with your specific lender regarding what they need. One, at Fifth Third Bank, we have made the decision that we will not be extending additional funds for people who have already applied. That's just you got one shot at the apple, and that's what it was. And so we're not taking any applications from people who've already received fundings. So moving on to the forgiveness portal, I don't think I have anything to add to what Patrick and Walter have already said, other than pay attention to the requirement, pay attention to the total requirements, the fact that it's 60% of payroll now versus the original 75% is a great thing. It should help out lots of business owners for that. If you qualify for the EZ form, I strongly encourage you to use that form. It is much simpler. We were happy to see the second form come out because I think that will take care of the majority of our clients. We did help over 38,000 clients during this process that we have funded loans for. As of last week was 38,000. And I think that's probably all I have to add. If you want to jump to the questions, I know that we have a short period of time to answer a lot of questions. So
there's a lot of questions. So I think we should get started. I'm going to start with the ones that were pre-submitted, and I'm going to try to group them together a little bit and jump over the ones that have already been answered. So there were some general questions that were asked that have already been answered. First, about employees. Is it allowed if I have to let people go but hire a replacement in the same period, therefore the number of employees stay the same?
Yes, yes.
That's a simple answer, yes. Okay. What are the pros or cons for opting into the 8-week period?
What are the pros or cons?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
thinking about.
Well, I mean, if you have already, used your PPP money over the 8 weeks, you can apply now for forgiveness once the portals are open, which should be in a week or so. That gets that out of the way, so you don't have to worry about that. The pro is 24. You were shut down through no fault of your own, and you weren't able to use the PPP money. Or you decided not to take out a PPP loan until recently. Maybe you're thinking, 24 weeks is just a better business decision than the 8 week. So it's going to be an individual kind of business, kind of calculator, back of the napkin judgment. So overall, they both are handled the same. The lenders will be looking at them the same. SBA doesn't really have any input or preference for one over the other. It'll just be how the businesses is most able to use those funds. Walter, what do you think? Any proof? Any different? Any?
No, it's really up to the business how they're going to use it. The business decision. It was, as you were saying, if it was a restaurant and you were shut down, and now you're open back up, you have that 24-week flexibility, and that's the main key. It's really a business decision.
Okay. And we had a lot of questions about payroll, about days. That is, if the payroll day falls out of the 8-week time window for that month, could the payroll cost for that month still be counted towards payroll costs as part of forgiveness?
So they're like a week behind or whatever it is, I'm assuming. Yeah, we do allow the flexibility for that, and it's been cited there. So, and then again, then you have that, if that's the case, you may just want to wait like an extra week or whatever it is, because you have that flexibility, so you don't confuse anybody. But yeah, that would be allowed as well.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and ask an eligibility question, but and I think it's more towards PPP. But does the loan apply to landlords who have lost rental income during COVID? I think this is primarily employees, right?
This is for employees.
So
this is for employees, not rental income.
Okay. What is the appropriate way to indicate wages or hours for individual employees who fall into one of the waiver categories? That is, we offered to restore their job, but they declined. They asked for fewer hours, they quit. We need to show the hours and wages in order to avoid penalties, but it's not clear how to enter this on the form, particularly when their status changes in the middle of the covered period.
That one's like an individual situation, because whether it's unemployment, I would just really have, you really should have that conversation with the banker, because the banker is the one that's going to certify and work with you through it. So I would just have, and each bank may handle that a little differently. So I would just suggest you speak to the banker on that.
Okay.
And hey, Beth, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, be prepared that when you submit your application, we may ask for very minimal documents, but hold on to everything, because most of us will have someone in the back office reviewing these applications and asking for additional details. So don't get frustrated when somebody comes back to you and says, I need this, or I need that, or I need this. Just have all the documentation that Walter and Patrick have already mentioned, and have it readily accessible in case you need to provide it during the process. And I wouldn't throw away anything until after you have seen that your loan has been forgiven and closed out.
Right. And I got two questions that are sort of like that, both by sole proprietor, self-employed. One says, I pay myself quarterly. So the PPP is from May 8th to July 7th. How can I show the last week in my 941s so that they forgive them for that quarter? Another one is asking sort of, I just received the PPP, and normally they would deposit a check into the business account and pay themselves. And they were told they should write payroll in there. I think it goes to what you were just saying, Lisa. I mean, you just do everything you can to make clear to the SBA and the bank about what that check is for, right?
That's correct.
So, I guess
So maybe
they need to be doing. Sorry.
I was going to say maybe the 24-week covered period fits their payroll a little bit better as a quarterly employee. That's 6 months.
Pay this quarterly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would give them 6 months of coverage.
Okay. How are servers' cash tips handled? That is, a customer pays the bill, including tip via credit card. We pay server that tip amount in cash at the end of the day. Is that tip included in our payroll costs, even though it's basically a pass-through from the customer?
I mean, it's listed in the interim final rule that commissions and tips can be included as part of payroll. So the employer will have to figure what the average tip, revenue, or whatever you want to call it, average tip amount is per that covered period, and then apply that number to the PPP application. And Lisa, you may want to kind of follow up with that, because that's something that was probably asked a million times already by the restaurants out there.
Yeah, and I would say that probably goes back to the point that I just made. I would include the calculation as Patrick has just mentioned. I would include whatever the average is per employee, and I would include that in your numbers, and then just be prepared to provide backup data if requested. And again, that's probably going to be individual because each restaurant probably handles tips a little bit differently as well. So that's my best advice on that one, is be prepared to show your backup data. And I can't say that enough.
Right. Well, I think you, hang on. Some of you've already done.
One other little bit of advice, and this is coming from our Charlotte office, and they said that SBA can go back and look at some documents for up to 6 years. So as a business owner, it might be prudent to keep at least 6 years worth of your financial records available, especially if it includes an SBA loan. So that might be good advice, just to hold on to those for at least 6 years.
All right. So I have a big question about documentation, sort of what documentation would be required. It sounds like the general answer is everything you can give, but, and also, you know, talk to your lender. But for instance, they say our space is on the property of a church. We have a loan with monthly payments for the original upfit. Can that be counted towards occupancy expenses? Can a lease copier payment be counted? Can monthly internet costs? I think you all have already talked about some of that. If the payments have been made out of 2 different bank accounts, does that matter? That was a no.
I don't think that matters if the payments have been made out of 2 different accounts. You just need to be able to provide the documentation. And I'm going to defer to Patrick and Walter on some of the questions regarding leases, because we had a different understanding. So I will defer to their information, which is that business leases could be included. So, but add on if you want, if you have additional.
Sounds like rather than traditional lease that they did an upfit and are paying monthly, sort of like a monthly lease expense.
It's part of the mortgage. I mean, is part of their rent? It's part of their monthly rent lease. So
Yeah,
then in that
that's
case,
an occupancy expense, is there?
yes, then that would be included. It would be my interpretation.
Walter's nodding his head. Yes. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Well, there's a general question: how do I grow my business without employees on a payroll? And we hear that. I don't think that's for the SBA to answer. If you opt for the 24-week option versus the original 8-week option, do you wait till the end of that period to apply for forgiveness, even if the funds received are used well before, i.e. within 10 weeks?
No, as soon as the funds have been used, apply. So it's just saying you have up to those 24 weeks, but if you spent it in 10 weeks, by all means, that 10th week, start having the conversation with your lender, because if everybody waits till the 24th week and it's going to be right during the November holidays, it's going to be a lot more frustrating to get a hold of your banker and a hold of anybody else. So,
but not Lisa though.
No, not Lisa.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
it's just going to be a mad rush. I mean, it's just going to be a capacity situation. So as soon as you spend the money, apply for forgiveness. That's the best advice I can give you.
Okay, here's a good one. If we have to furlough employees in the near future, will that have any effect on the PPP loan forgiveness?
Well, as far as I know, Walter, they have until December 31st. Is that correct? 2020 to bring these FTE numbers back up to pre-pandemic levels.
Yes. Yeah. So, that wouldn't necessarily influence it. You might furlough the employees, but as long as you're not really, additionally, if you're furloughing them, you're probably giving them limited hours. Hopefully you don't have to cut their hours by more than 25%. So it's just an individual, situation. You just have to look at those things. And Patrick said that some of the resource partners can help you more with that, because that's a very individual to that business, when you get there. Or you're more than happy to reach out to us and we can point you in the right direction when that comes up specifically. Okay,
I am looking at the ones online, so someone asked again about cash tips. Can that be included even if they're paid at the end of the night in cash? I think the answer to that was yes from before. Someone said, I'm a sole proprietor with W-2 employees. Can I use my pay towards total payroll?
Yes, yes. You can use your pay towards total pay. They can use the pay, but it has to be cut at it has to be limited at 100,000, obviously. So if they're making 120,000, it would be limited to 100,000. So that can be used.
My PPP loan was under the first group approved. Am I still able to use payroll for longer than the original 8 weeks?
Yeah. Yes.
So,
And that's an automatic. You don't have to get permission from your lender. You automatically just kind of transition into 24-week forgiveness if you don't use the 8-week forgiveness period. So it's not something you have to ask permission for. It's just by default, you'll fall into that next category.
okay. And that's another question about furloughing employees. Will that impact the loan? Is there a time frame during which we need to keep everyone employed? I think y'all have anything to add to that question? I think you answered that one already. For the payroll costs, is that gross wages or net wages after withholding taxes? Walter, you had an answer to that?
Yeah, that's gross wages. So that includes everything, that goes on your 941. So that's like your gross wages.
What time frame do you use to calculate the numbers on page 2 of the EZ form?
Could you say that again?
What time frame do you use to calculate the numbers on page 2 of the EZ form?
You would use your covered period,
Okay.
which is
I
8
see
weeks.
that, Walter, you've already answered a couple. If you've asked questions, Walter has already answered some of the questions on the Q&As and saved his time. So hopefully y'all can look at those. Thank you, Walter.
You're welcome.
Can you discuss alternate time period versus time period?
So that's the alternative time period is like, if you're paying like your employees like a week in the arrears, that's what it's usually for. But now that we are to that, 24-week, that really shouldn't really be a big deal because now you can take it to 9 weeks. So that's.
Okay. How do you go ahead and submit once you use the money, because we won't have our utilities bills for the months ahead. We might reduce our payroll before the alternative covered period is over.
So it's a timing issue? Is that what they're asking?
Yeah, in other words, I think y'all were saying, go ahead and submit, and they're saying, but we won't have our utility bills for a while. And we might have to reduce payroll. How do we make those decisions?
Well, they can wait.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They could wait for that extra 4 weeks to elapse in order to put in those utility and rent figures. So they could do that. And then right as those costs are known, then apply.
So if we got, yes?
Oh, this is not, and before we hang up, because I know time is getting short, I wanted to go back to one point that was brought up early on with the 2-year and the 5-year payback period for loans that are not forgiven, and that all loans that were submitted before, I think it was sometime in June or on a 2-year pay. I'm sorry, June 5th?
Yeah, before June 5th, it was on a 2-year pay period.
Yeah,
June 5th on, it was.
Right.
5 years.
For most banks, at least for our bank, when you apply for forgiveness, if you received your money prior to June 5th and you're paid and you signed a note that said your money is due in 2 years, when you apply for forgiveness, be sure to make a request to switch to 5 years. That is an individual bank decision, but if my firm belief is if you don't ask, you don't know. So make certain that if you want that 5-year, if there's some portion of your money that may not be forgiven and you want that 5-year payback, that will be a specific request that you will have to make if your loan was, if you received your funds before June 5th.
Okay. Thank you. My goal is to go to 105, if that's okay with y'all, since we started at 12:05.
I wanted to there's a question on here about the employee
Yeah.
checks written versus payroll service that is taxed. Should I change the check from 1099 status? Well, a 1099 person doesn't count as an employee for you, so that wouldn't count. A 1099 person would have to apply, by themselves, because the 941s is the payroll taxes. So that 1099 employee, even though they might work for you 40 hours a week, let's say you have a construction company and he or she's a painter and you pay him 1099, that's technically not your employee.
Okay, was that in the ones we were getting to? Are you jumping ahead, Walter?
No, I just saw the 1099 one because that comes up a lot. The 1099, that's an
Okay,
important
thank
one.
you. All right, now I've lost track of where we are. I'm sorry.
All right.
Hang on. I know we were at Jerry Davis. Okay, if we got the PPP money after the second quarter, like April, June began, can we count salaries and payrolls from the same quarter, from the entire quarter? Should I read it again? If we got the PPP money after the second quarter, April to June began, can we count salaries and payroll from the entire quarter?
I'll leave that up to the lender to decide, because I mean, technically they shouldn't be going back. If they got it in the second quarter, they shouldn't be counting first quarter payroll. But if there's an overlap in the earned versus worked period, then I would definitely say, yeah, you can go back a little bit to include some of those payrolls that were earned previous to when you got the loan, let's say June 1st, but the work was done at the end of May and you're paying them in June, that would qualify. But if you're going to be paying them for February, then probably not.
Because the covered period really starts from the time of the funding. So that's like the covered period, whether it was the 8 weeks or 24 weeks. And that's why we have that flexibility, like, a week before or whatever it is. But really discuss that with your lender.
Okay. There's a couple good ones, I think. If we didn't qualify for full forgiveness in an 8-week, can we apply for forgiveness once we do, or do we have to wait for 24 weeks?
Like Walter mentioned earlier, it's, as soon as you use the PPP funding, then you can apply at any time. So you do not have to wait for the full 24 weeks to expire. Anytime during those 24 weeks, you can apply as soon as those funds are expired.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. Said they got their PPP loan in 25th of June. That's when the money appeared in their account, but said the original place I applied said to get more information from the specific lender, but I haven't heard anything from the lender. I've been afraid to touch the money until I know the forgiveness specifics. Is this a normal timeline, or should I be reaching out to get more information? And obviously getting more information today, but
Sure.
I'll reach out to their lender again if they haven't heard from their lender.
I think I misunderstood the question.
Yeah. Did they already have the money?
Yeah.
No, and she's just saying that, the original place she applied said they get more information from the specific lender, but she hasn't heard anything from that lender. And she's afraid to touch it until she hears from the lender. I guess she should I don't know, should reach out to her lender.
Oh, did she already get the money? Or
Already got the money sitting in her account, but now she's scared to use it because she's, more info today, but hopefully, but it sounds like she wants some more specifics from her lender. So, okay. And I'm sorry, I'm reading through these as we go. There's not that many left. Time period. Oh, this is the 1099 employee check questions, one you already answered.
Yes.
Is the forgivable amount for an employee, not an owner, different for the 8-week period versus the 24-week period? In other words, can I continue to pay my employee with the loan or have it forgiven for more than 8 weeks? Or is this the total the same no matter which plan I choose?
There's different maximums that you can pay your employee if you elect the 8-week versus the 24-week. And that was in the PowerPoint. You can go back and look at the max amounts.
Okay.
There are max amounts for employees and there are max amounts for owner owners. Those are two different amounts you can look at in the PowerPoint.
Right. So payroll that includes gross payroll, 941 taxes. How about state payroll taxes?
Yes.
Yes.
So would count.
And then another question was mileage included as transportation cost. I think you said that was based on, that was
It's
determined by
based
the
on the lender. That's based on the lender criteria if they'll accept that, but that's generally accepted. I mean, that's so, but the lender is going to make the decision on transportation, what they're including.
So, only a couple, oh, it's 105, but what, you know, someone, it's a small business with no payroll, so I didn't apply. The business is set up as a partnership. Could I apply for PPP?
Yes, they
As
can
long as
apply it.
someone's getting paid.
Depending, that one, maybe they should just email me because that gets into partner distributions and other things that I can take that offline. And I'll answer that question for them because it's the way they set up their K1s and other things.
And I think we're going to have to end the questions there. So thank you. It was a whole lot of great information, and it is all very complicated, but it is a really wonderful program, and I appreciate y'all taking the time to do this presentation, answer all the questions. As we said, the PowerPoint will be sent to you after this. This whole program will also be available on our YouTube channel, which is called Artswell TV. So if you want to watch it again and think you missed an answer, you can watch it. It may even be up by tonight. You will, I guess, get a link to that later, or you can subscribe to Artswell TV and find that when it goes up and all the other great content we have. Also on the email that y'all will be getting, we will be providing the emails. I think those are probably in your PowerPoint, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
Contact to all of y'all, and hopefully, and Lisa, if Lisa's not your lender, we all have the emails for your lenders, but Lisa, I really appreciate you helping us and providing the lender perspective. Thank you, everybody, and we will, if you look us up on triangleartworks.org, and thank you for participating.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.